Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1, Episode 36 of Sweet Combat. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. The penultimate episode. So we're picking up with the group having their farewell party for you, which I was kind of sad because I was like, oh, Tien's not there. I mean, it makes sense, but it's like, I'd hope that he wouldn't miss this. But it's like, of course he wouldn't. Regardless of what's going on between him and you, like, he still needs to be there. Because I was like, oh, it's kind of sad not all five of you are there, but he shows up eventually. But I love that Xiaomi is so upset because it's just like Yanan and Hao, and it's bothering her more and more. She's like, fine, I'm gonna go help Mama Hao. And it's like, Yu's like, what is she upset? And it's like, yeah, this time it's not about you, it's about me and Hao. She's jealous. And it's like, oh, do you want to like help out a little bit? So you want to kind of be like her farewell gift is to mess with Xiaomi a little bit. But also, like, Yanan's looking at this as like, ooh, this is my sweet, sweet revenge of I get to do this against you, kind of get you back for all the shots you've had against me. So when Xiaomi does return to the table, it's like, oh, how can you give me that? And then Yu starts joining in like, oh, I'd love some too. It's like, oh, you should give some to Xiaomi. Xiaomi's like, no, I don't want any. Don't you dare even try to. It's like, well, she doesn't want it. Here. And they put some in Hao's bowl just to make her seethe more and more. Especially when, like, Hao's mom comes over later on being like, oh, so Yanan, how's your dad? He's like, stop by. He's like, oh, he's been pretty busy. And then both her and Hao look at each other like, ooh, it's working. And then you can tell, like, Xiaomi's like, oh, they're keeping stuff, and that's just more of their code and them and stuff, and just frustrates her more and more. So, but luckily, Tien shows up, and they're able to kind of fully celebrate. And I love when Tien and Yu end up leaving, like, she's like, he's like, well, be careful, you might be drunk. She's like, I'm not drunk, I'm not even drunk a little bit. But lo and behold, where do they end up? In front of the place making the ice cream shop or whatever. And it's like, oh, like, why would we find our way back here? And it's like, yeah, like, this place has unforgettable memories, more so about, like, yeah, their first kiss was here, like, when they finally confessed to each other that they like each other, bared all their feelings. So it's like, this place is kind of monumental, you know? And they kind of repeat some of the lines from, and as it cuts back between the actual scene and them present day saying the lines of, you know, like, oh, I'm not good enough. It's like, oh, you'll improve. Well, I'm a freshman. And she's like, well, I'll fail so that we could take our sophomore years together. And I was like, it's super cute. And they're laughing about it. And you kind of wonders, like, when it's all said and done, considering everything and how everything ended up ending, maybe it would have been better if we had never, like, if we just kept walking and never, like, crossed each other's paths, but kept, like, we walked past each other like ships in the night. But for Tien, it's like, even knowing where this all ends up, I still won't regret. Like, I would make the same choices all over again because liking you, I will never regret liking you, you know? And I was like, that's so sweet. And they hug one last time. I even like the fact that Tien's hat, it says tomorrow on the back of it because he's got it turned around. Once again, his name meaning tomorrow. So at the same time, we have the Xiaomi and Hao situation where he's following her and she's just like, leave me alone. You have 3 seconds. And she starts counting down, but he doesn't leave. And she tries to kick him, which I think is so beautiful is, if you remember, at one point in time, Yu was kind of thinking about, like, her and Tien. And at one point, she was going to push him against the pillar. But then, like, she had a fantasy about, like, him doing that to her, like grabbing her leg and kind of pushing against her, like, or was it her doing that to him? I don't remember. But it's so interesting they give that to Xiaomi and Hao, which, once again, another funny, like, correlation between Hao and Tien's characters in that regard, in correlation with Jaegu, like, because, like I said, they pull from the same character in a lot of ways. So for that to kind of be repeated here in that regard, it's just kind of interesting. Like, not saying that anything like that happened to Jaegu, but just the both characters that pull from Jaegu's character, just like that moment is kind of a Tien and Yu moment, but now it's being shared, kind of given to, like, I mean, once again, that was also a like, Yu was imagining and fantasizing about that. So it's kind of cute. And then like how like ask Xiaomi like, do you like me? And she's like, why would I like you? He's like, you might be able to beat me to death, but he's like, I'm gonna tell you at first, I like you. And she's kind of caught off guard, especially when he kisses her afterwards. And she's almost like, she's like, who said you could kiss my magical lips? She's like, you don't get to do that unless I give you permission. And he goes in for another kiss. She's like, what did I just say? And she walks away. She's kind of smiling, and he's like, wait, does that mean I get to do it later? I'm like, yeah. I was so pumped for him. Like, get it, yeah. I was so pumped for them. And then it's like, it's once again, it's so sad because like while all these couples are getting together, like obviously Tien and Yu had their breakup. There's also the situation with Mama Hao and Yi Chen. Apparently, like when Guanyan came over to train, her Yanan's dad ambushed him and attacked him, which he had this little cute moment with Yanan where he's like, it hurts here, and then he turns to her and be like, here, and she's like, you idiot, leave me alone, don't even talk to me. He's like, come on, Yanan. It was like so adorable. But yeah, he snuck over to see Mama Hao. She like, there was some broken glass, and he's like, whoa, let me get it. The fact is, you said you had like a headache, and I don't want it to be a situation where like you work yourself so hard, and while you're picking up the glass, you fall into it. It's like, oh, let me handle this. It's like, oh, where's Hao? And she's like, well, Xiaomi and him are dating now, so I wanted to kind of give them like, give them time to kind of go on the first date. I'm like, yeah, they do. Yeah, you did. I was like, that's so awesome. So that's cute. And it's like, oh, like Yanan told me you've been pretty busy. He's like, yeah, but not too busy that I couldn't come over here to like, look. And she's almost like looking like, wait, looking at what? And he's like, yeah, just, like obviously like I figured you would need help. So that's why, like you could tell like she's kind of like getting captivated. And he was like, oh, where's the trash can? She's like, oh, and started pointing up in the air. And he's like, it's up there. And she's like, oh, no, it's over here. I'm like, once again, it's the most adorable thing when you see characters like a Yanan or a Xiaomi or even Yu or even Mama Hao, who are so like confident, but then they start like stammering. Like, I mean, I think that's one of like the cutest qualities of just like those characters is when they get caught off guard. They're the ones who are so like in control, but in that moment you could tell like Hao's mom was kind of captivated, being like, oh, so like he does like me. And like, once again, absence makes the heart grow fonder. So we'll get to picking that up later, but I want to circle over to the whole situation with Yu before she left. Her conversation with her grandfather. It almost makes you sick that you're like, because she's apologizing for being so headstrong and everything. And I'm like, it sucks. You don't owe him an apology. He owes you an apology. And it's like, he's like, oh, you're not mad at me? You don't hate me? And she's like, no. He's like, good. I'm like, she should. You gaslighting manipulator. I was like, that is some next level evil. Like, you're up here gaslighting her. Like, she, once again, putting her at fault when you and your machinations and your part are playing all this. It's like, dude, you suck. Yeah, Anji are responsible for her own actions, but she also played a role in your machinations too. So that is just so nasty. Especially because she's like, right, you didn't shed a tear when mom and dad died, but it's like you had to stay strong for us. Like, once again, the conversation she had with her brother quite a few episodes back about the whole conversation of, right, he had to stay strong for us. And it's like, right, I might not have always agreed and I've kind of fought you on things, but I'm sorry I was headstrong and all of this. And it's like, no, like I said, you don't owe him an apology. Like, him kind of warping you into being who he want, and having the audacity to tell her, hey, like, if you go there and you don't want to stay there, you can come back. If that was not an issue, then why are you manipulating the situation to have her sent away in the first place? Because I'm like, you don't mean that. Because it almost makes you question all these genuine moments. I think you are sad to see her go, but it's like the whole thing of, she's like, right, I understand everything you've ever done for us is because you love us and care for us. He's like, yes. Even the terrible things that you just don't know about. But I'm like, dude, like, I don't believe you when you say, like, when she's like, oh, she could go, and like, if she's unhappy, she could come back. I'm like, I don't believe you for a second. I don't believe you. You suck for that, dude. That is such hot garbage. That sucks so much. And it's just like when she finally leaves and he's kind of like, breathing. I don't know if that's him being like, okay, I can swallow. Is that him swallowing his guilt? Is it finally eating away at him? Or is that just being like, okay, good, it's done, you know, I won't have to do any more crappy things towards my granddaughter now that she's done this. It's all okay, like everything will be fine going forward. It's like, oh my God, I was like, you suck for that. So, and then we in the long run, we get our year time skip. They never expressly say it's been a year, but it definitely has been like, because the same thing, because I was curious if we're going to get the time skip, and we do, because it is something from the webtoons. They never expressly tell you how much time has passed, but it's definitely been over a year, because all you see is mainly like, because obviously, like, this is like very, like, probably like the last couple chapters of the series, I'd probably say. Maybe the last dozen or so, it like takes place after. It might even be less. It's probably less than that. It's like a handful of chapters that take place after a time skip. You see a whole bunch of seasons pass and stuff like that, but they never expressly say like a year's passed. But it definitely has, because the next tournament's already happened, which I thought was kind of neat. Because as I talked about previously during like the actual tournament we got in this series, Yanan actually wins the tournament, and now they actually give Yanan the win for the next year's tournament, which I thought was so neat. I thought that was kind of a neat little like, oh, like wink and nod to like how it played out in the webtoon. Because like the next tournament she doesn't win. I don't even know if she actually participated in the next tournament. One of the winner of the next tournament is actually one of the recurring characters that doesn't exist in the webtoon. The girl with glasses, that's kind of a recurring character. No, like I said, I think, well, she might be kind of an, I don't know, never mind. I was about to say like, because I thought she was more so like the wushu girl, but like, because there's a girl with glasses and kind of has like a fro, like she could be that, the girl with glasses in the live action could kind of be a amalgamation of her and the other girl, but I think she's probably meant to be an amalgamation of her, but like whatever the case may be. Like I said, I'm terrible with names, but I think the character's name was like, it's almost like Jagu's name. It's like Jingu, maybe, I think is her name. She actually wins the next tournament, and I love that. It's like a small bit where you see her after she won a tournament, her face is all busted up because it was like a tough fight. But yeah, I think that's because that character doesn't really exist in the webtoon, so they gave it to Yanan, who won the tournament over the course of the story. So it's just it's interesting, like I said, that little like nod to the webtoon in that capacity. And I love how her dad is living it up, running his mouth about it to everyone, like, oh my God, my daughter's the champion. It's like, you know how many opponents she had to beat? And Yanan's like 13. He's like, no, it wasn't 13. It was over 100. She's like, no, 13 is the number of strangers you told that story to. He's like, what? I can't be proud of my daughter for being the champion? And there's a whole crowd outside gathered. He's like, oh yeah, like thank you for your support. And then he proceeds to get fined because he put up some posters about like a discount for anyone who decides to sign up for like the boxing club. And it's just like, oh dude, I get it, you're a proud father. Now a proud father of an infant, because we find out so Mama Hao and Yanan's dad do get together, and they have a kid, so it's official. Yanan and Hao are full-blown siblings now, and they all both have a little sibling of their own now too. So I was like, that's super adorable. I was like, that's amazing. That's cute. I was hoping that would be the case, but I'm like, yeah, there's no guarantee they'd get together. But it's like, no, they got together, and they stayed together. So that's cute. So there's that element to it. We have Guanyan transferring, because like now, kind of like the webtoon, because time has passed, more male students have showed up at the school. We only saw like 3, one of which was Guanyan. I'm like, yo, you transferred schools? And I love that the girls are looking through binoculars and they look on the Guanyan and they turn to the side and there's Yanan looking at them, pointing at her eyes and being like, yo, I see you. Keep your eyes to yourself. That's my man. And it's like, oh, the rumors are spreading that Guanyan transferred schools just to be with Yanan. And it's like, oh, he's so hot. They're so cute together. It's like, Guanyan's like, shouldn't we like correct that? She's like, no, I like that rumor. He's like, I like it too. It's like, oh, look at you. That's so cool that you get to go to the same school. It kind of, once again, it's kind of it's kind of playing like the Gong Rock situation. Like I said, Gong Rock is like third or fourth year, like at a middle school. Like he's a first year now after the time skip. So now him and Moon Young are at the same school in the webtoon. So it's a little acknowledgement of that. You know, I'm actually surprised we didn't see anything with Xiao Feng, because we know that like she wasn't going to participate in the next tournament. Because I think The last time we saw her was during the whole like, oh, like charity like stuff, cleaning up on the beach. That's the last time we saw her, but we haven't seen her post time skip. We did catch up with Yi Chen, who's had great development. He's kind of, I don't know if he's like vice captain of the boxing club now at his school, or maybe he's captain now because, well, Guanyan's transferred schools, and I doubt he went back to being captain or whatever in that time frame anyway. But also, like, Xiaofeng was backing away anyway, so he might be the new captain now. That might actually be an interesting development too, because in the webtoon, Mu Young steps back as captain of the boxing club, and Jaegu becomes the captain. So I'm almost curious, like, is that supposed to be a kind of wink and nod there by making it Yi Chen becomes the boxing club captain of his club? And he's even doing what Guanyan was teaching him. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. The guy was like, my foundation, my basics are fine. He's like, no, all your skills will be built on rocky foundation if you don't get the fundamentals right. So the basics are important. And like, you know, him taking it seriously and seeing how much he's changed. Like I said, I enjoy that we gave that character even more of we gave that character an actual full arc in this. In comparison to like the webtoon of like him actually being able to fully turn things around. I really appreciate that. I thought that was dope. I love the whole bit with Xiaomi and Yanan, where like Xiaomi's on front of a like magazine. She's like, yeah, like so many people, like usually it was you getting all that attention, but now that she's bailed out of the MMA world, now it's all about me. And I turned them all down, but eventually I was like, okay, fine, you can take a photo of me since she's on the front of a magazine. And Yanan proceeds to rag on her by being like, oh, that's not her. She doesn't look like that. Xiaomi doesn't have abs. They've obviously like used like polished and like lighting to kind of change all this, and then proceeds to like Xiaomi like karate chops her in the back, knocking her out. It's like, yeah, take her to the infirmary. And even Hao being like, well, you don't have to like be mad, Xiaomi. He's like, you're sexy and I like it. It's like, oh. I also appreciate the Taekwondo club situation where it's like he's vice captain and he goes up against one of the other members and he kicks and she's flying back. Whoa. I was like, it's so exaggerated. I was like, there's no way he like got that good. And then he walks over to him like, that was crazy. And she's like, yeah, Xiaomi told me like to like sell it, you know, so I wanted to help out the captain. So I was like, that's so adorable. That in itself kind of goes back to the previous point I talked about in another episode. I've talked about a few times, is once again how Tien and how adopted certain elements of Jaegu's story and stuff like that. That's actually a Jaegu thing from the webtoon. Like as captain of the boxing club, he ends up going up against Manon, and Manon does a similar thing of, oh my god, Jaegu, you're so good, you beat me so effortlessly, just so that like the other people signing up for the boxing club could be like, oh my god, Jaegu's so cool, he's so sick. And Jaegu's like, you really didn't have to go that far, really? Which is so funny too, considering the fact is they never got their full match during the previous tournament. So for him to kind of do a similar thing, kind of give the win to Jaegu again, it's just kind of funny. So it's kind of neat that they gave that moment to Hao instead of Tien. So I just thought that was so interesting. It was just kind of pretty neat being able to catch up with everybody. We haven't seen the director since he fell down those stairs. So part of me is wondering, like, did he actually go on that, oh, I'm going abroad to do volunteer work, like he said? Because I thought falling down the stairs might have prevented him from going. But I'm like, maybe he did, because we haven't seen him since, I don't think. But obviously, Jaegu is kind of, not Jaegu, Tien has kind of kept up. Life is pretty much the same, just looking after his siblings and working and continuing his training. He says the only difference is, like, obviously, he thinks about you all the time. And even then, like, him imagining her by his side again, being like, go, go, go. It's like, it's been a year, you know, time is supposed to make you forget. But he's like, I still remember her smile and I still remember her voice. That hasn't faded away, so I was curious, like, all right, I'm like, there's still that other element to the story. And it's like, yeah, they made sure to get to it. We find out that Akan's wife ends up getting arrested. Because it makes you wonder, how long did it take them to build a case? Because just because they arrest you, typically, not always, but typically if they're arresting you, they probably have some of the evidence against you already. So I wonder, did she did not cover her tracks well, or maybe Aunt G did not do a good enough job to make sure she was... I'm so curious, what was it exactly that got her caught, you know? Because like I said, it's been like a year, so it makes you wonder I wonder, was it like an autopsy that like maybe brought some of that to light? I'm not sure, but Xiao Mi and Hao are looking at it, and it's like, right, her getting caught and everything, but they end up running into Tian. Well, Tian ends up coming to them, is like, what are you guys talking about? And Xiao Mi starts piecing together. Like, granted, it's been a year, so she didn't remember as much, but she's like, yeah. And then like, it's like, wait, we should be bringing this up in front of Tian because you're saying that Akan's wife, had some connection with some woman that has some connection to Fong Yu's family's company. And it's like, that's just going to make Tian think about Fong Yu. And it's like, well, and she's like, it's a different situation. They committed insurance fraud. Tian's dad killed Uncle G and then didn't commit insurance fraud. It's like, no, that's funny because those circumstances are exactly the same. But either way, Tian's like, wait, what are you talking about? And it's like, he starts piecing it together, like, wait, this isn't making, what's going on here? And so he's trying to get Xiao Mi to remember little things. And she started remembering details. In fact, like, Hao almost kind of like hypnotized her by snapping his fingers and be like, focus, remember, you know? And so she sadly never saw Aunt G, but she heard her voice and was hearing all this stuff. And it gives Tian enough to be like, wait, was this all a fake out? Like, what's going on? So him and Xiao Mi end up talking to Zhao about it. And it's like, well, Uncle G did work as a bodyguard. So from the details you've explained, it would make sense. He would fit in the category of the person you're referencing that the woman was talking about. So it's like, right. So is it possible? Because ultimately, Tien's like, right, the only reason why I found out about the truth about my dad and Uncle G was because we ran into Aunt G and she's the one that said it. But it's like, right, her committing insurance fraud is one thing, but why would she come up with this lie now? Like, what would be her motivation? Well, she was paid extra to do it, but they don't realize that yet. I think it's going to come down to Zhao probably, like, either they're going to find her and force her to tell the truth, or, because I was about to say, not less, Zhao ends up finding some bait statements between showing that she got paid a certain amount of money. Like, she'll probably flip on their grandfather, maybe. I'm curious to see how the end result, what that's going to be, you know? But now it's like, right, we've got to find Aunt G wherever she is, you know, to find out the truth about all this. And it's like finally coming unraveled at the very, in the last thing that needs to be closed in this story. Without going into it, I'm curious if, because even though the story is taking place in China versus Korea, like the webtoon, you can still end up getting the ending being like, if I'm curious to see if Yu is studying abroad in the same place she is in the webtoon. I'll go ahead and say it. She's in Japan. Like, that's where the series ends, with her in Japan. That's where she was studying the entire time. Well, I think she was studying somewhere else for a bit, and then she eventually moved to Japan to study, if I remember correctly. So I'm curious to see if it's going to be the same thing or not. Because obviously, like, at later parts of the series, she was moving all over the place. I think because her being abroad was more so like a her thing. It wasn't necessarily like she was demanded to study abroad. That was more her decision, kind of similar I haven't brought the comparison up, but it's like, yeah, because her and Jaegu were in such a weird spot, she kind of wanted to be away from him to kind of figure her own stuff out. And so because of that, she was just traveling around. It wasn't necessarily because of school. Eventually, it was about traveling, you know, studying abroad. But maybe it still was in those capacities. But she was all over the place. And then eventually, like near the end of the series, she's in Japan. So I'm curious to see if it's going to be the same thing here. I'd also bring this up, just kind of a small thing. I had previously referenced, because this show is set in China, I was like, there's a thing that happens in the webtoon. I'm like wondering, would it be fun if they made this thing that was kind of Chinese related, actually Korean, just to kind of like flip the whole situation with the webtoon. But basically, it's like while they're on vacation at a beach or whatever, it's everyone together. Ultimately, Jaegu ends up helping a girl who kind of crushes on him a little. Well, she's not really crushing on him, but she wants to talk to him, but she's speaking in Chinese, and the only person there who can speak Chinese and understand Chinese is Queen. And so that ends up being a whole thing, like that mistranslation. Like that's a whole bit. In fact, I brought this up previously, the old man that was forced to be their referee during the foot volley game in the webtoon, he's also here on vacation in this beach and ends up getting dragged into a second game of being a referee. Like so that since I'm at the end, and obviously they're not doing that storyline or adapting that, like I figured I'd also correlate that since I'm talking about like maybe stuff they can change because of locations. In fact, it'd actually be interesting, like if they actually said like, right, maybe it's not even Japan that Queen is studying in. Maybe she's studying in Korea, South Korea. That'd be really, really interesting. Just like as I pay a little homage to the webtoon, which is originally Korean. But either way, some interesting developments all around. I'm very, very excited to ultimately see where the series finale takes us with all this, how this gets resolved. I think I know for the most part, but I'm waiting to see like these exact conversations, because this is wild. Like I said, this is a whole new storyline to see how it concludes. And like I said, I think it's going to end pretty much like the webtoon, but I still would like the lead up to it. So, but really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.